It is the last day of the first quarter. What a quarter it's been. Extreme volatility in the markets, swirling fears of a trade war, and this major reckoning for Facebook. And of course, we covered it all on Quest Means Business.
Markets are heading for all-time highs in the very first trading session of 2018.
Records are falling faster and faster.
Clearly, the momentum is absolutely on the upside.
Some are really worrying when wondering whether this rally is out of control. The Dow suffers its worst single-day point fall.
I don't think I've ever seen anything so volatile in my life.
It's like a perfect storm. The stock market's natural fear of uncertainty all conspires here.
The US may be on the verge of imposing hefty tariffs on steel and aluminum imports.
It's quite a blunt tool because it hits a lot of other countries.
We really believe in free, fair, open, and reciprocal trade.
About time, right?
That's right.
Sir. You've been waiting for a long time.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to call it a trade war, but wars usually start with one battle.
In the war room, as you'll recall, I've shown you exactly what has been happening. Each side is already showing off its arsenal of trade weapons.
We will take the necessary strong measures to protect our own interests.
This is number one, but this is the first of many.
Mark Zuckerberg says his New Year's resolution is to focus on tackling Facebook's problems, stopping hate speech and warding off foreign meddling.
Facebook's at a turning point. The question is, how many resources can they invest to solve these problems?
A whistleblower says a data firm linked to the Trump campaign tried to brainwash the American electorate.
The company that I remember was really aggressive about protecting user data. Yeah, I do think the company should have acted earlier.
And I'm really sorry that this happened. We have a basic responsibility to protect people's data. And if we can't do that, then we don't deserve to have the opportunity to serve people.
Exhausting, and it's only Q1. 3 topics on the board for the first quarter: markets, tariffs, and Facebook. And 3 CNN reporters who have been living those stories for the whole quarter. Paul is our man in the markets.
Thank you, sir.
Pat has been watching all matters on tit-for-tat tariffs. And in Atlanta, joining us from the CNN Center, Laurie Siegel, who magnificently secured that exclusive interview with Mark Zuckerberg. We'll be with you, Laurie, in just a moment. February, with volatility, defined the quarter. When we came out of that volatility, we sort of knew it wasn't over, but we didn't quite expect it to ramp up again like it has.
I think clearly, Richard, the issue that the market's grappling with right now is that there was way too much complacency in 2017. A lot of people laughed off on Wall Street all of the crazy soap opera-ish sort of things coming out of Washington and the Trump administration and the environment. Everyone really thought, well, companies are going to continue spending, consumers are going to continue spending, none of this is going to really matter. But I think that changed once all of a sudden you had this fear of a trade war, you had tariffs coming into play, you also had questions about whether or not the Trump administration was going to be fueling the economy with too much stimulus at a time when they didn't need it and could cause the economy to overheat.
So that question of a trade war, I mean, Peter Navarro said on this program earlier in the week, look, everybody knew what the policies were. Everybody knew what we were going to do. Why are you surprised that we went out and did it?
He has a fair point, Richard. The markets should have known for a long time that this was, in fact, coming. I think it was the delivery and the communication of Trump's trade policy that threw markets off. You might remember earlier in the quarter, President Trump haphazardly mentioned the 10% tariff on aluminum, the 25% tariff on steel. He ended a meeting, and then a reporter asked him a question, and he shouted out the numbers. No announcement on policy or paper from the White House at that particular day. So there was a lot of confusion at the time in markets, and even here in the press, we were trying to figure out what exactly was going to happen. And there's still some confusion about how the countries will be exempted and what measures they're going to have to take.
Well, with that in mind, if Paul, if we look at the way the market had risen so sharply in 17, this idea that almost it couldn't go down, but at the same time, it seems to want to go higher. We saw this after February again. You know, you have the volatility, but it makes another oomph. Now, that's justifiable on the back of corporate profits, which we'll get in when we get the Q1 numbers.
Yeah, I think many people on Wall Street are extremely optimistic about what earnings are going to look like in the first quarter, justifiably, and probably for all of 2018. The question becomes whether or not some of these trade policies impact 2019 results. You have some people wondering whether or not we might have a recession sooner rather than later. I mean, we are due for a slowdown inevitably. Will it be during this Trump administration or after 2020 during a second Trump administration perhaps, or someone else's?
Trade in Q2. Go on.
Well, it could be good news or it could be bigger fears. We could get escalation between China and the United States. On the other hand, we could get a trade agreement in principle on NAFTA between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. This has been an ongoing concern for markets, so there could be a mix of good and bad news. It'll be interesting to see if the countries that received exemptions on the steel tariffs, Richard, are facing a quota or if they get off scot-free. Peter Navarro told us earlier this week they're not getting off scot-free.
And it will be in that second quarter, January, February, March, April, May, June. Thank you, sir. We've got a busy quarter ahead. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Laurie Siegel's in Atlanta. Laurie, Facebook. The reality is regulation is coming. The only issue I need to understand is, from what you understand about Facebook and what we saw in Q1, why didn't they see this coming? Why did they? Was it arrogance? Was it hubris? Was it incompetence?
What a fascinating question. I think there's always been this certain arrogance and idealism about Silicon Valley. And this is the watershed moment. This is the moment that tech founders are coming out and saying, wait, how did this happen? Why didn't we see it sooner? And I think this is the problem with Facebook. You see the blog posts after the fact, after Russian interference. You saw Mark Zuckerberg come out and say fake news didn't do anything for the election. And then months later, he wrote a manifesto saying, I'm going to get this right. You know, the idea, and when I sat across from him at one of the most crucial moments in the company's history, where you could see him sweating, you could see how nervous he was for this moment. You know, I said to him, how do you guys become more proactive and not reactive? Because you can make mistakes when you're a small startup, but when you're a large kingdom with 2 billion users, those mistakes can impact democracy, can impact mental health, and can put you on Capitol Hill having to answer these really difficult questions that lawmakers are now going to be asking him, and also trying to regain user trust.
Right. So, question to all three. Start with you, Laurie. Q2, what are you preparing for?
Oh, I think the backlash has begun. I think this is going to be damage control. I think they're going to be investing quite a bit in security, as we had here in America, at least toward the midterm elections. I think they're going to be investing in quite a bit of that. And I think they're going to make a prediction. They're going to start putting Zuckerberg out. I'll raise my hand now. They can put him out with me, but they're going to start putting him out there more. He has been, Richard, in his own filter bubble, you know, and they haven't put him out enough. This is a time when this company needs accountability and transparency. I think we're going to be hearing more and more frequently from him, and not just in blog posts and these canned Facebook Lives.
Laurie, you have given us a new, on our very first quarter, you have given us a new catchphrase. Gentlemen, put your hands up. What are you going to see in Q2?
Potential escalation.
Hands up. What is it?
Potential escalation on trade wars, between a trade conflict between China and the United States. And, Richard, let's pay attention. We're in a red-hot U.S. job market right now. This is the engine of the U.S. economy and, to some extent, the global economy.
Hands up.
Along those lines, if the U.S. economy continues to hold up reasonably well, will Jerome Powell, the new head of the Fed, have to make moves more aggressively with regards to interest rate hikes? And how will President Trump, who's technically his boss because he appointed him, react to that? He can't fire him, but do we have the analogous situation to Greenspan, potentially, as some would argue, destroying chances for George H.W. Bush to get reelected in '92 because the economy eventually slowed because of rapid rate hikes? We're not there yet, but I think it's something that bears watching.
The team will be covering and watching. Trade is a global business. It requires global coverage. I'll take you to Davos, where world leaders challenge President Trump's agenda, and to the UPS World Port, where packages go before they arrive at your door. The lights are on. It didn't sparkle. I'm pretty certain I nearly said the Empire State Building, I knew the Eiffel Tower will sparkle at the top of the hour. It's difficult to remember where I am sometimes. We rang in the year in Times Square, and since then, as the map shows, we've been in Davos, Paris, London. We went to Dubai. We've been in Kentucky, Brussels, Atlanta, and down in Perth, Western Australia. Sometimes I find myself out of place, and that was the problem facing President Trump when he travelled to the annual meeting of the global elite at Davos. If he was nervous about going, the leaders in Davos were nervous about what he would say when he got there.
Very exciting.
He is just the voice of a fractured world. We have to look not just at the person, we have to look at the reasons behind.
We want to level the playing field to put our workers at a competitive equal level to workers around the world.
There's been deregulation, which has been helpful in some respects. The effect of the tax cuts is coming now.
I think it's now when we go down to the details and how we deal with the unfairness, that's where we need to do the hard work.
Thank you very much.
You have to look at both the rhetoric and the actions. The message is firm. Others are measuring up how to handle that.
We need the United States and its leadership to solve big international issues, be it in the economy, be it state to state, be it multilaterally.
We do a survey every year, 1,300 CEOs. Geopolitical risk rose to the top of that survey as well.
Geopolitics and macroeconomics feel very disconnected. You see huge optimism about the economy and huge nervousness about the world of politics.
So the leaders come together to tackle the world's biggest problems and talk up their own countries. It's a particularly tall order for Zimbabwe's new president. Emerson Mnangagwa is telling businesses, his countrymen, that the corruption of the past Mugabe era is gone. However, what he won't change, laws dealing with same-sex rights. The president told me it's up to the voters to decide. I put it to him that his country is being left behind.
My priorities today, I would grow my economy, right? Increase the standard of life of my people, putting that as a priority. Our priority now with my government is to embrace the international community and say Zimbabwe is open for business. Let people who want to invest in Zimbabwe say this is what they want, these are the constraints they see, and this is what I believe is necessary for us to grow, to catch up with some of the developing countries in our world, in our region.
One more on this. I venture to disagree with you, Mr. President.
That's democratic.
Surely, by changing, whether it's on women's rights, gay rights, whatever rights it is, human rights, surely by changing those, you really send the true message that you're not just interested in money coming in for dollars for business, but creating an equal environment for all. Surely that's a much more powerful message than just asking for a bit of extra foreign direct investment.
It's not a question of having dollars in Zimbabwe. It's a question of development. We must have functional railway systems in my country. We must have functional infrastructure in terms of highways and so on. We must have functional manufacturing sector in the country. I must modernize and mechanize my agriculture in Zimbabwe. I must have a developed mining sector in Zimbabwe. These are the things, as far as I'm concerned, are the issues which my people look at for government to address and facilitate for their development so that we catch up with members of the region.
As we were on the road in the quarter from Davos over to Kentucky, the UPS World Port is the heart of a network that handles 20 million packages every day. And I learned what it takes to be the man in brown. Every quarter, we travel the world to show you the economy at work, the beating heart of the global shipping industry. That happens to be in Kentucky. It's the world port of UPS, which can handle 115 packages every second. Keeping them moving is a huge undertaking.
Hairspray for Houston, dog food for Dallas, samples to Sydney, a contract for Kansas. Sorting parcels seems so simple. The goods come in, they're sorted, and then they leave. But when your warehouse is bigger than 90 football fields and you're handling 2 million packages a day, there's no room for a snooze at the UPS Worldport Hub in Kentucky. In charge of it all is Jason Foote.
This facility, while on a normal day may only process 2 million packages, during peak season will handle more than double that.
Well, only that's an enormous number.
It is, but it's what we do every day.
Cameras and conveyors everywhere. 155 miles of moving belts. While automation is key, humans remain part and parcel of this operation. Many of them working here are local students, and the pace is relentless.
This is never ending. Hour after hour, these small packages flow into this tidal wave of sorting that now has to take place to ensure these little packages end up in the right destination. Now, the most important piece of the logistical labyrinth, arguably, of course, is the last leg, the final mile, from distribution centre to your front door. So I went that final mile with the man in brown.
We're out on the road. He's the man in brown, Jeff Goodman. I'm the intern, Richard Quest. And when a package's journey nears its end, it's down to us to get it the last mile, all the way to the front door. Delivery driver rule number 1, handle with care.
When something says fragile, handle with care, how much care?
I see these people every day.
Yeah?
I don't want to get a report saying that something of theirs was damaged, so I handle that just like it was mine.
Do you ever wonder what's in all these things?
This is dog food.
What?
This is dog food.
How do you know?
About the weight and the sample.
That's the real beauty of being a local delivery right now. You know the area, you know the people you're delivering from, and you know the dog.
I probably know the dog better than the people.
And no matter how sophisticated, at the end of the last bit is you going in there
walking it
to the door. Right, where's it now?
180.
Rule number 2, you'll need to walk the walk and do a lot of walking.
Here comes the postman. Here comes the postman.
Number 3, beware of the dog.
Are you an old softie when it comes to the dogs?
Those can be my best friends or they can be your worst enemy.
So you've always got emergency resources. There's a lot of planning involved, isn't there?
The more you plan, the easier your day.
Something tells me I'm not going to make a very good UPS delivery man.
Finally, I earned my stripes. Or rather, my socks.
I heard you were admiring our socks.
You can't beat.
Because not anybody can just get these socks.
Look at this.
So you are officially a UPS driver.
You're a UPS driver. UPS socks.
For a moment at least, I was officially a man in brown.
Time to get out of the truck and back to my own comfort zone, the stock exchange. Yours just gavel 3 times, but a couple more. It's the sound that brings trading to a close every day. However, as you will have watched on many occasions, not all gavels are banged equally, and it takes a range of skills. A sort of quiet, miserable sort of day. Oh. A bit like that gavel which was a bit of a pathetic one. And yes, they're trying to break the gavel, but they can't. It was a strong, firm, robust gavel. The market has fallen very sharply. Please, sir, put us out of our misery. Oh. Yeah, something tells me that that gavel was entirely appropriate. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a robust one. And a second one. But you don't often play to the crowd quite like this. Ah, there you go. Yes, sir, one. Oh. We only got one gavel left. That was rather weak and wimpy. Whoa. 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that's called over-egging the pudding. 3 hefty gavels and a high five. That's about the only bit of cheer that you're going to get today. Come along, sir. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there we are. That's how you close the market. And that is the Quest Means Business quarterly report for Q1. I'm Richard Quest in New York. Somehow I don't think the gavel is going to beat the bell, because whatever you're up to in the quarter ahead, I hope it's profitable.